Hello and welcome to adQ&A episode 6. 6, I can count, I swear. So today we're actually talking about Facebook bidding strategies. There are several different ones, as you can see. For any of you veteran Facebook media buyers out there, maybe you're already familiar with all this stuff, but if not, tune in, maybe you got something to learn. So what are the different ones out there? There's lowest cost, target cost, cost cap, and bid cap. And for people who are just sort of getting started, there's probably a lot of confusion around, which one should I pick? What's best? What's worst? And like many things on Facebook, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. There's not really a best or worst for every single scenario. So the way that we like to think about it is thinking about basically two different aspects. One is the degree of control that you're giving Facebook over your settings in terms of delivery and bidding, right? But also in terms of what your priority is on a scale between sort of maximum lead volume or purchase volume and best CPA or CPL, essentially best cost per conversion, right? So let's go through and kind of talk through these each one by one and get a deeper understanding of what each one entails. So lowest cost up here at the top represents the setting that gives Facebook the most control over how your ads are sort of bid on, right? So basically the way this works is that you are essentially handing Facebook the keys and you're saying, you know what, I want you to get me the lowest cost per conversion, but I'm not going to place any limitations on you, right? Facebook, I'm leaving it up to you. Get me as many conversions as you can for the lowest cost per conversion. And the way that Facebook handles this is they get fed signal via your purchase pixel or your lead pixel or whatever it is. And over time, they start to adjust both the bids and the delivery to get you the lowest possible cost per conversion, right? And so you'll see over time the pixel will fire and they'll start to build a picture of, oh, okay, it's, maybe people within a certain age bracket or people from a certain geographic region or people with particular interests have a higher chance of converting, right, within this audience that you're targeting. So let's sort of skew some of the delivery towards, these individuals so that you get a lower cost per conversion, right? And it's also going to adjust the bids. I think we touched on this in a past episode, but the main thing that it's doing, at least initially, is making sure that you're bidding the absolute minimum necessary in order to spend your entire daily budget. So no big surprise there. Facebook's number one priority is spending all your money, right? So that's how they're initially going to set the bid. And in theory, at least, over time, if Facebook thinks that it could reduce the bid and still get you, a reasonable cost per conversion, it may do so. So a lot of times you put something on, lowest cost, let's say, and you'll notice that the CPL or CPA might come down over time. Or you'll see this too sometimes when you go up from, let's say, a $500 a day budget to $800 a day or $1,000 a day. You'll notice at first there's going to be a spike in your cost per conversion, but eventually it will probably come down as Facebook optimizes along those two different axes in terms of delivery, who's actually seeing the ad, right, out of all the people that possibly could, and how much are they bidding to reach them. So now there's target cost, and I'll come back after I kind of go through each one of these and talk about what's sort of the best for each different scenario. But target cost is the first bidding option for which you're starting to place some limitations on Facebook. You're starting to say, look, I'm not comfortable giving you free rein and letting you do whatever you want, right? I'm actually going to place some limitations on you. So here you're saying for whatever that conversion is that you're optimizing to, which is defined, I believe, at the ad set level, I don't want to pay any more than X, right? And you define what that cap is, basically that target cost, right? And the difference, there's a subtle distinction here between sort of target cost and some of these things like a cap, right? A cost cap or bid cap. So we'll get more into this. But target cost, basically, the way to think about it is you're saying, look, I recognize, Facebook, that sometimes you're going to have to bid a little bit more or bid a little bit less, but ultimately, in aggregate, for a decent sized chunk of data, I want the cost to come in around this target, right? So you're starting to now place some limitations on who Facebook could serve to, right? So for instance, there might be certain people that the ad might serve to, but for whatever reason, Facebook deems them as being not ideal, let's say, in the sense that they're going to drive a cost per conversion that's sort of higher than you're looking to reach. And so it's not going to serve to those people. So it's going to start to put some limiting factors into where Facebook is going to deliver. These next two options are going to really start to narrow down your delivery, right? Your potential reach, right? Which is cost cap, which is basically saying, rather than giving Facebook some flexibility, you're saying, look, I never want to pay more than this to get a conversion, period, right? So if Facebook were to think like, if you said the cost cap was 25 bucks, and Facebook was looking at all the different people that it could serve to, different sort of segments, subsegments of your audience, and Facebook's going, well, I could get some conversions over here for, $25.50. They're actually not going to serve to those people, right? Because they have a very strict cap in place that says, under no circumstances do I want to go over that cap, right? And the bid cap is even more granular. At this point, you're not even thinking about this in terms of a cost per conversion. It's actually down to the bid, right? So this represents the least control for Facebook and most granular control for you. But the problem that you're probably going to find with some of these things like bid cap is that because the competitive landscape is constantly changing, people are adjusting their budgets, adjusting their bids and so forth on a regular basis, that bid cap can get really binary in terms of delivery. Sometimes you're going to get tons of volume if you have a high bid cap. And if you set your bid cap too low, you're going to get no delivery because Facebook is basically saying, look, man, you're not bidding enough to actually serve, right? You've essentially set a bid cap that's lower than the realistic bid that I need to put to be competitive in the auction, right? So again, this is giving Facebook the least control. And this is if you have the highest priority on minimizing your CPA, right? If you need to have super duper fine-tuned granular control over your CPA, bid cap will give you the most granular control over that. However, the downside is that it's very likely to limit, whether and where you start to deliver. So this is kind of the spectrum here. Now, which one is best for you really depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? A lot of times, if people are just starting out, a new campaign, our best practice is usually to roll out with lowest cost, right? And to get a sense of what's the best that Facebook can do on their own. If we leave Facebook to their own devices, we basically hand them the keys to the car, and we say, hey, show us the best you can do, right? The beauty of this is that from an active day-to-day management standpoint, it doesn't require as much babysitting, right? Facebook its OCPM algorithm is automatically making adjustments to both bidding and delivery in order to minimize the CPA, right? And again, you're not putting in a cap, so at the end of the day, it is just sort of Facebook's best effort, but depending on how realistic your CPA target is, what you're selling, your conversion rate and all these different things, sometimes you might find that you get good performance with lowest cost. And this has the benefit, because it's putting the fewest restrictions on delivery to the Facebook algorithm, it's giving you the highest sort of effective reach, right? Which you could think about as being, like we talked about this circle before, let's draw it again, but if you have an audience of 5 million people, right? This is 5 million people, right, that are in your possible reach, but your budget is only $1,000 a day. Realistically, you're only going to reach sort of a certain slice of this, right? And Facebook is ultimately deciding who within this slice is getting served, right? So whenever you start to then impose these restrictions, what you start to get is a smaller and smaller slices of the pie that you could serve to, right? Because there's certain people out here, let's say that if you're going a cost cap, that Facebook could probably get to convert if the ad was served to them, but Facebook is basically saying, okay, well, I can get them to convert, but I don't think I can actually get them to convert under, within your target cost or under your cost cap or under your bid cap, right? So that's basically the trade-off. So up here, most Facebook control, you're going for just massive volume. It's a good way to start getting some data on the pixel so that you can start kind of priming the pump. And then once you see the best that Facebook has to offer, and if you're way off the mark, and you've already feel confident that your conversion rate's as high as it could be, and that you're buttoned up on user experience on your landing page, well, maybe then you start to kind of rein Facebook in a little bit by trying some of these other bidding methodologies around target cost, cost cap, and bid cap, and so forth. So that's generally the way that we think about it. Now, if you are a relatively small advertiser in terms of the budget that you have at your disposal, you might actually prefer to run on one of these. While your delivery can be very erratic, right, based on how competitive your bid is with the bid cap or the cost cap, it can also be not necessarily a bad thing. If you only have $100 a day to throw around anyway, in terms of your daily allowable campaign budget, then really lowest cost might give you, might eat up your whole budget and get you, 2 conversions, where potentially one of these other manual bidding options could be a more efficient use of your spend. But again, the downside there being that you're going to have to watch that on a daily basis, because you could be humming along, driving 3, 4, 5 conversions a day at a relatively stable cost per conversion. But once the competitive landscape changes and you start getting people coming in and bidding up on the same audience that you're targeting, when you might see that you start getting 0 impressions, right? You stop serving. And then when that happens, you then basically need to adjust your bid cap, cost cap, or target cost up, right, in response. So anyway, that's basically it. So hopefully that serves as a quick sort of high-level introduction to these different bidding strategies and what their sort of pros and cons are. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments. As usual, please let us know if you have any other topics you'd like us to cover. Feel free to chime in. We do these streams live, so if you have questions you want to chime in as we're streaming, hit us up. Thanks again for watching. I'm Nick Sinitra, and tune in next time.